That's a lot.
I've been with big fan of the channel for a while.
Time flies. I was I just noticed that I didn't have my desktop audio on, so everyone that was listening, they're just gonna have to read your lips. It's pretty funny. Sorry guys. I hope your lip reading is good. Nicholas just said the last time that we met was in Singapore about a year ago, and he's got about 300K plus followers on YouTube. I think that was the important part there. I forced it out of him. No one likes to brag about their YouTube numbers, but I would. If I had 300K followers, I'd lead with that shit. I'd be like, yeah, you know. If I did makeup tutorials, I'd have 500K.
Oh man, that's the backup plan. If DeFi and crypto doesn't work out, Richard Hart makeup. There we go.
Bro, I would literally have more followers if I did keyboard reviews. And people that do keyboard reviews have more followers. Like, it's just more people use keyboards than they buy crypto. That's how it is. So
yeah. Well, Andy, I'm excited to chat with you now. I think there's so much going on in DeFi right now. It's actually been a while since I've done a live stream, so I'm happy to do it with you, man, and just get to catch up because I mean, taking a step back, I mean, dude, like back in November, I know you were on the early stages working on your project HEX, and we were kind of watching the early stages of DeFi kind of take off. I don't think people really even knew what DeFi was at that time. And, you know, we were I think we kind of looked crazy when we were shouting through the roof that we had gone through the wake-up call on Ethereum. We kind of shifted our opinions from being kind of more like on Bitcoin focused to what was going on DeFi. So
it's
on Ethereum.
Like,
so I'm just...
I mean, we were doing this stuff before anybody else. Like, a lot of people say HEX kicked off the market because we were, like, the biggest thing in DeFi is Uniswap by far. The most liquid Ethereum USD pair in the world is on Uniswap. There's over $1 billion or $2 billion of, I think there's at least $1 billion of Ethereum sitting in Uniswap. It's 3% of all Ethereum is in Uniswap. HEX was 40% of their volume and like number 1 to number 3 for months on that platform. HEX popularized that platform. Nobody else was there. We made it popular. And then, you know, it's funny, like people talk shit about HEX and then all of their other projects just die. So the dead bodies float by us in the river. We're like, oh, you were saying nice things about that project, exit scammed. Oh, you were saying nice thing about that project, hacked. You know, like think about all the hacks since HEX has been launched. BitMEX founders in jail. 2 are on the run. 1 has been put in jail and then got out on bail.
Really?
OKEx, no withdrawals for a week now. Founder, jail. You know, not sure what kind of custody he's in, but I imagine it's some form that's not that great, or he would let everyone get their withdrawals, right?
Yeah.
Binance hacked 50 million, 40 million, something like that. Said they were going to roll back the chain. And then promotes this exit scam crap on his like sidechain BSC or whatever it's called. You know, they've got like their fake versions of Uniswap that then they go ahead and get exit scammed. Yams went to 0. Sushi went almost to 0. You're just like, all of KuCoin hacked 250 million. I go down the list and I'm like, hey guys, Ravencoin inflation bug, minted an extra 5%, sold it on exchange. Hey guys, HEX 100% uptime. Everything's going perfect. You guys are all failures. You've all failed, all of you. You're all less.
To build on that, Richard, I want to kind of like summarize, you know, that difference, because I was kind of hitting on the fact, you know, we last chatted in November. We've messaged back and forth a little bit, but I got to tell you, man, the one thing that kind of like, there's 2 things that have hit me, right? So the first one here is obviously DeFi has grown as a topic. A lot more people are actually starting to see the potential of it. It used to be really kind of like, you know, just about a year ago, we were kind of nutcases for believing in it. I've been talking about Kyber Network in 2017, using Compound and Uniswap back in 2018 and 2019, and even toyed around with some of the margin trading platforms like DYDX and Fulcrum. And basically, it was like, wow, this stuff's really cool. And at the same time, there wasn't much liquidity. There wasn't much kind of market validation. And now we've gotten to this point, man, where, I mean, you saw CZ tweet out himself, like,
they're scared.
Basically, Yeah, they're scared, man. They have to list this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not, again, I wouldn't even be railing on CZ or like Binance as a company or Coinbase, but they have to list this stuff. That's where
They
the
don't
trading
have
volume
to.
is.
They could just fucking die. Like, so, I mean, it's very simple. Cryptocurrency was invented to get rid of middleman. Cryptocurrency was invented to put you in control of your finances. If you are sending selfies to somebody, you are a bitch. They will make you beg for your money. They will lose your security. They will get hacked. You will lose your money. The crypto is designed to get rid of those middlemen. Exchanges are middlemen. And by the way, where does everyone lose their money? They buy shitcoins that go to zero, or they margin trade. And how do those exchanges and coin ranking sites make all of their money? On people getting wrecked margin trading, and on people getting wrecked exchanging into shitcoins. They need you to get in and out of coins to get volume to make fees. They need you to get in and out of trades to make volume to get fees. So when you see rich exchange founders, they're rich because they jacked their customers. Now, there is one exception. The one exception is regulatory arbitrage. We do need people that have bank accounts that can onboard people from the fiat world into the crypto world. We do need that because the governments don't play fair. They don't just let you sell your crypto like you would sell an umbrella. They make you get all these licenses and shit. Because of that, some exchanges do have utility. And so when people say, hey, I want to buy in, I refer them to Bitstamp. The reason I refer them to Bitstamp is because they don't have margin trading and they have minimal shit coins. And so the people that I send there are less likely to get destroyed. But if I send them to other platforms, they're shoving margin trading down your throat, and they're shoving shitcoins down your throat. And who does that harm? Those people that are on the other sides of the trades. Like, it's not good for those people.
Yeah.
How many people have outperformed buying and holding Bitcoin? Nobody. I mean, now altcoins now, but like in general, if you try and trade and outperform like just Bitcoin's natural 1.3 million X that it's up now, you're not going to beat it.
Yeah, I think that the thing that Richard, I wanted to just take some time to talk about as like a secondary point is obviously people are taking it, obviously a lot more serious now. It's kind of a change on the overall industry. It's not just some kind of thought experiment or a bunch of guys who are just sitting in their basement, contextualizing what's going to be the new world of DeFi. The thing that like really irritates me, man, is like there is some parts of DeFi and stuff that have gotten me really upset, and a lot of that has been kind of the craze around like yield farming, and obviously there's the kind of the buzz around NFTs now. And I'll tell you, man, there is a lot of noise, and it's the same kind of people in the industry that I've seen who have for the last few years catching every single new wave and trend. And the thing that really irritates me, man, is like we have, for example, with like Digifox, like we wanted to kind of build a hybrid between centralized and also decentralized services to at least provide as much utility as possible until DeFi.
Well, when you were starting out, the only way that you could provide, so he started an app called Digifox that helps people get yield. It's basically the same business model or similar business model to HEX. So basically in HEX, the yield is paid through inflation and through penalties. In his system, the yield is paid by people borrowing it to short, basically, or sell, which is shorting. So, like, in his system, you guys, I think you still send most of your traffic to block.fi, maybe, or?
Oh, so we don't do BlockFi. So we do Celsius and compounds. And just to clarify on that, Richard, that's a good point. There is borrowers on the other side versus something like HEX, which is based on staking. But the biggest thing here is that actually the biggest borrowers right now that have actually been able to drive up the interest rates that are existent right now in the stablecoin market are mainly exchanges, to my knowledge. But there are a lot of people as well who are taking short positions. That's why, for example, the borrowing rate on a lot of altcoins that were overextended during the DeFi craze had a pretty high yield. So
the thing that worries, so like when we talk about the problem with, so this is the summary there is that we both built something that tries to get people yield on their money. Much of DeFi is fake. Much of it is entirely centralized. There's a guy, I can't remember his name right now, but he's always laying into these people that are centralized entities where there's huge risk. And he's the only guy doing it.
Oh, Chris
Blec.
Chris Blec. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I support him doing that, and I have done that myself. And people don't realize the tail end risk of everything disappearing at once. So if you had your money on Quadriga CX in Canada, it disappeared at once. If you had your money on Cryptopia in New Zealand, it disappeared at once. If you had your money on OKEx, you ain't getting it. Maybe you'll get it, but right now, for the last week, you're not getting it. So, there's this tail end risk of everything's great, and then rug pull, exit scam, jail, bug, whatever the fuck it hits. And you can reduce the chance of that happening, right? So HEX was delayed about a year because we took security very seriously, and we got 2 security audits, and it took time to do security right. Everyone else is getting the shit exit scammed out of them. Andre Cronje launches a new fucking coin. People FOMO into it, EVM or EVN or whatever, Eminence, EVN, I guess. X like goes to zero, bugged.
Yeah,
You're
that's something I would say.
Why are you doing that?
Richard, I think to build on that again, that's the kind of narrative shift that I'm really getting tired of in this space. And again, not really singling out Andre in this case, but this whole narrative of like, yeah, let's just deploy something on mainnet. Like
move fast and break things with finance. Yeah. Like, no, you will lose everyone's money. You will lose everyone's money. How many times do you have to see everyone lose all their money? Stop doing that. Yeah. So there are audited, Uniswap is audited out the ass. HEX is audited out the ass. You can, there are things that have been around longer that are battle tested that don't have vulnerabilities. Use those things. Stop getting exit scammed and being a degenerate gambler and buying any ticker symbol that comes out and then thinking you're rich for 20 minutes and then watching that shit go to zero. It's stupid. How many times do people see it? It's ICOs over again, except now they don't even make a fancy fucking white paper. They just tell you there's some yield farming shit. So this guy, Chris Blec, the last thing first he calls out RenVM for being totally centralized. The cold wallet that holds $1 billion of Bitcoin is in the control of like what they say is 6 guys. You don't really know how many guys.
From my understanding, and I don't want to make a claim, so don't quote me on this, but I think they use like a custody solution like BitGo at the moment, as they're going through like.
So then it's BitGo 6 guys.
No. I'm building on your point, Richard. Yeah, I think it's like the problem that I've seen, as you mentioned, is there are a lot of like there's the admin keys, which Chris was very good and vehement about putting out, and I really admired him for that. Like, and I've watched some of Chris's content as I was going through the DeFi space myself. But yeah, the problem is like, man, I've gotten like the biggest criticism I got, Richard, from a lot of people is like that people were like, oh, for example, like some people were really cautious about Nick. You plug into Celsius, you plug into some of these like centralized providers in this case.
Well, there's risk. You're basically just slave to the counterparty risk. Like they can exit, and look, they could be the most honest people in the world, but BitGo's based in the United States, and if you're based in the United States, you aren't in the right country for crypto. You're not. CZ will never enter the United States territory. Ever. I'm willing to bet you Arthur is not in a rush to go get into police custody in the United States. I'm willing to bet you, right? Yeah. So like people forget why crypto exists. It is an adversarial relationship with people that don't want you to have your freedom. There are people that do not want you to have your freedom. They want you to beg them to transact. You want to buy food? Use a card and we can say no. You want to pay your rent? Use a card and we can say no. You want to get a taxi? Use a card and we can say no. And you're at our behest. If we want you to be able to transact, we'll leave your card on. But if we don't like you one day, we deactivate you. And then you're what do you do to eat? Right? What do you do in a cashless society to eat if your card's turned off? You starve is what you do, or beg. So people didn't have to lose money in Cryptopia. They didn't have to lose money in Quadriga CX. They didn't have to lose money on OKEx. They didn't have to lose money in these exit scams, rug pulls, hacks. There is a better way. If you use truly audited, secure software like holding their coins yourself, then there's no counterparty risk for you. There's no counterparty risk for you. So
absolutely,
it's like you have smart contract risk in DeFi. Fine. You have inflation bug and node risk in normal coins like Bitcoin native or ETH native. And then that risk, you have an extra layer of the custodians. So your blockchain could fuck you, or your smart contract could fuck you, or the people holding the private keys could fuck you, or the government could fuck them and make them fuck you. And then you have to decide how many layers of fucking do you want to engage with, like a stable coin. You're like, fiat sucks. So, fiat sucks, and you can only put $100,000 in the bank to get deposit insurance. Maybe it's like 300 now. And then it's always going down in value. So how can we make that suck worse? Let's have a stable coin where you don't even have the money in your account. Somebody else has it in their account. And then you've got blockchain risk, counterparty risk, no FDIC insurance, and no yield. You don't make any money in the coin. It's just like, but the funny thing is, as shitty as all that is, it's still worth it to most people for the regulatory arbitrage to use it still. stable coins have the most volume of anything in crypto, even though you would never think like, wow, what a dumb invention. And then they've proven to be fractional reserve. Like the NYC Attorney General to Tether was like, hey, yeah, you just had like three-quarter of a billion seized in Poland. So yeah, you're running a fractional reserve. And they're like, yeah, but we launched a token, so it's okay. and it has been okay so far, you know, like, so my point is, I want to get back to the Chris Blec, the risk thing. There's a token that people are farming right now. I won't tell you what it's called, but there's $1 billion of funds in it that one guy can take whenever he wants. He can literally just take all the money. There's a 12-hour time lock, and he's already done things that have taken 13 hours to fix bugs before. So he could just have a bug, say, okay, I'm working on it, replace it with something else that has a backdoor in it, and then empty out all the funds. So RenVM could run with all the money, BitGo could run with all the money, and they're in charge of all wrap BTC. And who's trying to buy them? PayPal. And now who would be in charge of the wrap BTC? PayPal. Is that good for crypto? PayPal sucks. So it's just hilarious that we were supposed to replace banks, and people are like, oh God, the banks are coming, thank God. And we were supposed to replace PayPal, and people are like, oh yes, PayPal's buying more banks. Oh my God, it's so amazing. And there's like no worse company in the world than Facebook. And they're like, yes, we're going to get the Facebook coin. Or how about this one? Unicoin, or
Uniswap.
Uniswap is better than Bancor because they did more volume and better software and didn't have a $100 million ICO and didn't have a stupid duct taped on token. And everyone loved it. And they're like, yes, real, no bullshit duct taped on token, right? Public good. No one's getting rich. But then what happened? Got to duct tape a token onto that shit. They duct tape a token onto it, and everyone loves it even fucking more. And Hexagons love it the most because Hexagon's got 5% of all those fucking coins. And it's a $1 billion project. So Hexagon's got $5+ million free money off of those airdrops. So thank you for the free money. That's amazing. And they have the funniest price chart. First 2 days, solid green lines up, only doom ever since. it's literally a Nike symbol pointing up. It just goes like this. It's like hilarious. And there's never, oh dude, crypto is so funny. The hypocrisy. It was amazing because there's no token. And now it's more amazing because there's a token. What? And it was fully functional without the token. Okay, so what does the token do now? And the token's a security as well. So what is a security? You give money to a common pool with the expectation of profit solely from the work of others. Okay, so they say things like, hey, this token, it's going to allow you to change the default search list, to put tokens in the default search list. Okay, well, I know that a human being has to edit that. That's not on chain. That's a front end that someone runs on a server. So a human being is going to edit something to benefit the holders of this token. That's a security. Someone is doing work to pump someone else's bags, and then everyone lists it instantly. Everyone lists an obvious security that has voting and like, I'm like, what? Or like CZ. CZ's like, yo, we don't list anything unless we know the founders. Okay. List SushiSwap within hours, and then exit scams. You're like, what happened, dude? What, huh? Like, you have enough money. Like, you don't have to scam. You have enough money. You already have successful business. Your market cap's already billions. Like, you don't need to do extra risky, stupid scam shit if you're already like the leader of the fucking volume. Like, they have real volume. It just blows my mind, dude. So in summary, don't put your fucking money in things where you're going to get exit scammed that have oracles or admin keys, because you will lose it all. So that guy that has $1 billion, if he decides to exit scam, why the fuck wouldn't he exit scam for the $1 billion? I think he's anonymous as well. I don't even think he has an identity. Why wouldn't someone who's anonymous exit scam for $1 billion? $1 billion. Obviously they would.
Yeah, I don't know about the project, Richard. I mean, I've seen some of the.
It's called Farm. I think the token's called Farm.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, honestly, man, it's like, yeah, above all, this is the point I was getting to earlier. Is like, I do understand, for example, as with anything, and that's why we offer Compound within the Digifox wallet in that case. And we hope to offer more different types of offers in that case that are more decentralized.
Well, Compound has audits, thank God.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Compound is, but to be fair, as Chris Blec points out and stuff, again, all DeFi is it's kind of a spectrum. It's subjective. There are admin keys. And what's nice
still
is
has oracles.
Yes, exactly. An oracle. Yeah. So
people don't know what an oracle is. An oracle is two guys running a server that then controls everything. And if they change the price on that server, it ruins everyone's projects, all of it. And that's it. So when your blockchain thing says, okay, what's the price of a Bitcoin? Something has to tell it what the price of a Bitcoin is, because it doesn't know. And whoever runs that server can ruin everything.
Just to clarify, in that case, Richard, like that's if you could have an oracle that only has like two inputs, but most of them in that case, usually if you're using something like if you're using Chainlink or if you're using other solutions, in that case you're getting more inputs, correct?
Yeah. And then you get more people to collude to get their $1 billion payout. So basically the oracle attack is, hey, you and me and some other guy are gonna agree to lie about the price to make money on our short or money on our long. So we're gonna and then with flash loans, you could go get a fucking giant loan for free, go win your short or long. Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of flash loans, yeah.
I mean, the solution to flash loans is time-weighted average price, and then you have to manipulate it for longer, and flash loans are only good for 10 seconds. So, there is a solution to them, but, like, there's shit software companies like BZX that's been hacked 3 or 4 times that didn't even bother to use time-weighted average price, so they just got hacked, like, all the time. And they've been hacked for other reasons as well. So, if you use oracles, you're not getting censorship resistance of a blockchain. If you use admin keys, you're not getting censorship resistance of a blockchain. Uniswap does not use oracles. It is an oracle. It doesn't reference anything outside itself, and it doesn't have admin keys in the sense that they could change the game. So the game is what the game is. They do have a switch they could flip to turn on a 15% tax for new liquidity. It doesn't affect old liquidity. It doesn't affect traders. It only affects new liquidity providers. And if they flip that switch, I think everyone just goes to a different fork anyway. So they're not going to flip the switch. So don't use shit that has oracles if you don't have to. Don't use shit that has admin keys if you don't have to. And Uniswap, HEX, and not that many other projects I know of are free of those two things. I mean, I don't know of any other ones. Do you know of any other DeFi projects that aren't Uniswap or HEX that doesn't have admin keys and doesn't have oracles?
That doesn't have admin keys, I would say at this point, Richard, I couldn't think of any off the top of my head.
Forks of Uniswap, I guess. But a lot of those have admin keys, actually. A lot of those have admin keys for that new farming shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rare. It's like super rare.
Yeah. The point above all that I was trying to drill to and stuff that like I think is just important to keep in mind. What started to kind of make me upset about the DeFi space as a whole is I started to sense that it was being a bit misaligned or at least kind of misled by some people who are coming in with the whole yield farming craze.
It's not over.
And the problem that the
NFTs is the next shit. This cancer.
Yeah. No, exactly, man. Yeah. It's a big problem where like basically what I was finding is like there was people who were, again, as you mentioned, Richard, there are definitely risks at the end of the day and stuff, especially if you're considering insurance policies, regulatory compliance, and also, as you mentioned, on the technical front with custody. But the one thing that I really hated was like when we were seeing all these great actual applications in DeFi that started to come up like Uniswap and all these applications, I started getting criticism in this case when there were yield farming projects like YAM that walked away with millions upon millions of dollars. No one batted an eye. Everyone said, oh, they pat him on the back and say, no worries.
And stick them on the front page of CoinMarketCap too, always. All these fucking scams go right in the fucking homepage. You're like, hey guys, you're making money in there. You're selling ads. So people buy scams, and they go to your site to check on how their scam's doing, and then you sell ads on top of the fucking scam page. Great work. And these are the guys that advertise BitConnect and Yams and a lot of other shit. You're just like, why don't you have some, like a DJ doesn't play bad music. He curates the music and just plays good music. Why don't you guys just list shit that doesn't suck? You could do that, you know? You just have to have ethics and morals. These are already, like, CoinMarketCap got sold apparently to Binance for like $800 million fucking dollars. They don't need to keep scamming. They can relax that shit. They can hire a couple people to do quality control. It's just absurd to me.
Yeah. No, above all, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, Richard, in regards to kind of like the overall DeFi space, I'm just curious more than anything to talk to you a little bit about layer 2 scaling, because I know we messaged back and forth a little bit about it. So obviously for us, and I'm assuming maybe Hex is exploring it as well. But one thing that we've been definitely exploring is layer 2. So I've been looking obviously at ZK rollups, looking at optimism. You know, I'm just curious. I know we had talked about, you said you liked ZK rollups or ZKSnarks in this case. So I'm curious.
There are caveats. I do. Yes. I do like them very much for transfers of ERC20 tokens. Right. But if you need to do actual logic, you need to rewrite all the code. So that code's already rewritten, you're good. You can plug and play, it's fine. So if you want to do 2,000 transactions per second with Hex, you can do it on zksync.io. We've already done 250,000 transfers through there. I don't know of anyone else. We're the first airdrop on layer 2 in the history of man, basically. Vitalik was like, hey, the fees suck, use layer 2. The fees suck, use layer 2. No one would use it. So Hex had to use it. Just like we popularized Uniswap, we popularized, layer 2 on ZK.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you were telling me about the Richard. I think that's really exciting to see that you guys have, again, it's one thing I do appreciate about Hex and stuff, above all, man, the one thing I think I'd always told you since November is I think it's a wild, interesting experiment. And at the same time as well, it'll not only be interesting to see how it plays out over the long run stuff, but the thing above all that
I think we did all-time new highs yesterday. New all-time highs yesterday.
No, I know the market cap's been doing well, and I just want to say congrats on just the success you've had so far on it.
Thank you.
The one thing I wanted to say, though, is that, obviously, the one thing that I appreciate, Richard, about what you've done is that, again, you've gone through proper audits. You didn't just deploy it straight to mainnet eagerly to launch a token. And along with that as well, you are experimenting with a lot of interesting tech. To the point you were bringing up, though, about in regards to having to kind of rewrite the logic in this case for something like ZKSnarks.
It's too hard. Optimism's easier. So if you go with optimistic rollups, it already plugs and plays with the Solidity code that you've got, which is way easier. So Synthetics chose to do their L2 on Optimism. And then, the ZK rollup guys, for instance, Matter Labs that run ZK-Sync, they're working on it, but it's not out yet. So if you want to really use layer 2, you're going to have if you want to use layer 2 for contracts that do business logic, you're going to have a better time on optimistic rollups because they're already out there.
Precisely.
So
because the OVM or the optimistic virtual machine in this case basically runs in the same logical or code-based framework as what you're dealing with on Ethereum. Exactly. So this is why, you mentioned as well, in this case, Synthetics is doing it, but they also partnered with Uniswap, Chainlink. I think they've got a few other corporate partners right now, which is really exciting.
Uniswap's had Unipig, which is their L2 version of Uniswap out for a long time. I
tweeted Hayden about that. I tweeted Hayden. I was like, hey man, I gotta tell you, we've got users on Digifox right now who want to make swaps into these tokens, and the problem is right now is that the network fee was getting up to, it was like $20-30 a swap, Rich. It was crazy.
That's because the fucking Uniswap airdrop. Once the Uniswap airdrop chilled out, I mean, we were paying over 1,000 Gwei.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do trader speed, you were paying 1,100 Gwei. Because when Hex started, you could pay 2 Gwei. And then it went up to 1,100. Crazy, man. You're like, okay, so it's 500 times more expensive.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, there's actually a coin that's tied to that you could trade. So there's a gas coin that you could actually trade that's tied to gas price, which is funny.
I know about that. They have they have the Chai gas token. There's also another one that I'm thinking about. I think the original gas token, but I mean, I was thinking about picking it up, man. We were looking at it, obviously as a solution, but I'll tell you,
it's not really. I mean, it just cuts your price in half at most, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Is it was you're either paying 200 or 400 Gwei on transactions, and it's look, I mean, what's the difference at the end of the day? It was so ridiculous from just back again in November when we were kind of sitting quietly talking about DeFi and stuff and talking about Ethereum. I mean, you could literally pay transaction fees that were, anywhere from 1 to 10 Gwei.
Well, they're back to cheap again. I think maybe a few hours ago.
It's about 40, 20. And it ranges anywhere from 20 to around 60 to 70 and average out, I think around 50, 60. I've been watching Etherscan, but it sucks, man, for us because we did, as you mentioned, Richard, I completely agree with you that, if you choose to, for example, the whole thing about Digifox, the philosophy we had is that if you want to interact with Celsius or if you want to interact with Compound or Uniswap, you can interact with whoever you want in this case. And we're going to work constantly to hopefully try to, mention if they have a custodial platform, if it's a custodial platform that holds your keys.
Most people don't give a fuck. Most people do not give a fuck. I can yell. Chris Blec can yell. I can yell. Yeah. No one gives a fuck. They really, they just will not, they don't care. They will put their money in anything. It's crazy.
Yeah, well,
you don't even have to tell them.
Yeah, well, I think the best thing is above all, at least we have some kind of filtration on the good opportunities. We did the same with tokens as well. We don't want to just have a full list of the tokens that you can find on Uniswap without any kind of filtering. But the one thing above all that I think
you can just make a list. You can submit a list. To
no, we did that. We did, yeah. So we have our own custom list. Yeah, we submitted it. Yeah, it was really cool.
They just pulled 1 inches off. 1 inch used to be there. It's not there anymore. Funny how that goes.
Really?
Yeah. So 1 inch launched a while ago a competitive automated market maker system called Uniswap that puts a time delay on the price movement so that the liquidity providers apparently can make a little bit more and the arbitrage guys can make a little bit less, apparently. I've not really looked at the math too hard on it because most of the HEX liquidity is on Uniswap. Well, they used to have a list, and it was the 1-inch list, and it had, 500 tokens or whatever, and now it's not there anymore, like magic. Who knew? I wonder why it disappeared. There's so much shit that goes on that people don't realize, like, what's happening, right? Like, yes, it was probably removed because they're building competitive products, and then they don't want to compete, which is weird as if you launch as an open source project, you want people to compete with you, or you wouldn't have used an open source license. Open source license means please make a copy and compete. That's what it means. No. But then they launch a token, and it's like, oh, well, now that we got a token, let's fucking get rid of that list. You're like, so shady, man. It's just so like, I don't know. You wonder how many people really know what's going on, right? Like, for instance, isn't it interesting that the guy that launched SushiSwap just happened to be in the same graduating class of MIT with Alameda FTX dude? They were in the same class together. And what isn't it interesting?
Find the identity of him, or?
Yeah, it's the guy that owned the CTO of Band Protocol was the same fucking guy.
Oh, really?
So yeah, because they're hosted on the same server, and like he was liked every single tweet the other guy ever said, and you can tell what bag somebody holds by what they shill. It's really that easy. So what was FTX worried about? FTX worried about DeFi killing centralized finance. Binance is worried about DeFi killing centralized finance, unless they can get their fucking hooks in the DeFi, lock it up, and then DeFi is great, right? So what they did was they did a vampire attack against Uniswap by duct taping on a shit coin to liquidity farming, which was Sushi, and then they all listed it on their exchanges rather instantly and farmed it themselves, right, to earn yield. And that was their hope of getting their corporate hooks into DeFi in order to, like, okay, well, if our centralized play loses volume due to DeFi's, censorship resistance,
make up for it there,
right? Then their other plays will work, right? And so, like, Sam is still doing that stuff from a different format, and I think some of the things, I think a lot of what he says does make sense, but just because the shit you say makes sense doesn't mean you don't have an angle, right? And people that own centralized exchanges aren't happy to lose all their money to DeFi. They're not. And I'm in love with it. Like, I am a cypherpunk and I want the power to the people, and fuck these middlemen, and fuck selfies, and fuck the hacks, and like, fuck all that. Like, crypto can solve that, and solving that is a bigger deal than Bitcoin itself, but people don't realize it. More people, go ahead. It's DeFi and removing exchanges is a bigger deal than what Bitcoin was built to address. Because where do most people lose their money? In these exchanges. And how do most people really use cryptocurrencies? Bitcoin is just the utility token for margin trading. That's all it is. The vast majority of Bitcoin transfers is people gambling on the price. So this is the only real use case crypto has is speculation. And the biggest pain point that people have in speculation are these centralized fucking entities. So solving that problem is a huge, giant fucking deal. Uniswap makes more money in fees per day than Bitcoin does. Period. It's really that easy. Yeah. People care. They really care about these things. And the thing...
It's upsetting, Richard, just to see, like, I think over the last year or so, we've seen, I think the catalyst for it for me personally was when I was watching the Samson Mao interview with Vitalik for Peter McCormack. And I know obviously you and Peter had your interesting conversation.
They've all got me blocked. Magically, Peter doesn't have me blocked, but Samson's got me blocked. When I browse Twitter, I've either blocked them or they have blocked me, and it's mostly I have to private window Control-Shift-N to fucking actually read Twitter. There's so much blocking going on.
Honestly, I've listened to some of Peter's stuff. I didn't like how he acted in your guys' interview and stuff, but I digress. That's I guess a topic for another time. But the one thing that interview he did, I think he did a relatively decent job in that case. Bringing on Vitalik.
I thought that Peter actually did an okay job there. And I don't like him, but he did an okay job in that interview, in my opinion.
The takeaway, though, dude, that I just honestly, I've seen as I've traveled a little bit here as of recent, and went to actually a few small events, but like the thing, man, that I just constantly can't get past is the kind of arrogance. Now, there is some ETH maximalism. I'll say that's true. But like, man, the constant hostility towards the expansion of DeFi
It's crazy.
It is pretty interesting to see. And the thing that's sad is that I think it's a bit of remorse in this case, because, you know, taking a step way back in crypto history, people forget sometimes that what ETH is, you know, was going to be Bitcoin. I mean, that was what Vitalik wanted to propose.
Yeah, he wanted to launch it on Bitcoin.
He wanted to launch it on Bitcoin. They could have done a lot of what Ethereum's already done with colored coins, all these technologies on top of it. And it's really upsetting that it's still just kind of sitting on. People say, "Oh, the Ether's never going to scale." You know,
it's already scaling now.
Yeah,
you do 2,000 transfers like now. It does more transactions now. It does.
Yeah,
bro, I'm going to pitch you Ethereum over Bitcoin if you're ready for it.
I actually want to hear that, because I would love you to give that pitch to people. But I've
heard Vitalik do it, and he does a terrible job. Vitalik's pitch for Ethereum is garbage. He invented it.
I think
it ain't no good of a pitch. I'll give you a better pitch.
I think he tries to keep pretty passive on it, not too. But look, I think the overall thing I would just say, and then I want you to give that pitch, Richard, because I think you're pretty good at making the selling point there on Ethereum, as we've talked about it. But I think above all, man, the thing that's just so clear is that, you know, right now we actually have a real opportunity here with DeFi to actually, as you mentioned, fix a lot of the wrongs here, not only in crypto. So obviously the most valuable use cases here are AMMs, or decentralized exchanges, to attract liquidity and allow swaps, and also hopefully to earn some kind of yield or interest. But along with that as well, man, like there's so many things coming people haven't realized. There's going to be under collateralized loans soon. There's going to be all types of things. You know, those margin trading platforms.
I have no idea how they're going to do that. You'll have to tell me. I'll have to do that.
I'll have to share with you. I can't talk about it now. There's a project and stuff that is out there. I was originally working on an open source initiative that was focused on that. But there's another project of guys who happen to be good friends of mine who are working on it.
Because I think you can only do that if you have fast enough execution speed to liquidate in time. And so the reason we have over collateralized loans is due to network latency, basically.
So the one thing is, for the under collateralized loans, the way that they're doing it is they're actually pulling from real world data in this case. So the one thing I've always been a believer of is if you ever really want real lending to be done in a relatively decentralized way, you're going to have to input real world data. And I know, as you mentioned, Richard, it's kind of a game of like, okay, how much information do I want to exchange?
But
I'll share more with you later and stuff. We should definitely do a follow-up conversation on it. So give me the Ethereum pitch. I'm curious overall, what made you click on it?
Do you care about security? Yes. Okay. Where have all of the hacks in cryptocurrencies come from? Bitcoin has been hacked twice. Oh, but how? The inflation bugs. Some guy minted 6 billion extra Bitcoin in 2010. Oops. Bug. Oops. They had to roll back the chain and fix it. The same shit happened again, except this time the guy that found it, instead of just using it and becoming infinitely wealthy, what a nice guy, he disclosed it to the developers, and then they fixed it. Now, originally, they lied about it. Originally, they said it was just a denial of service attack. But actually, it was a denial of service attack with a mint as many free Bitcoin as you want. Who knew? Well, they knew, and they told you, afterwards. So Bitcoin's had 2 inflation bugs. Monero's had an inflation bug. Bitcoin's had an inflation bug. Ravencoin's had an inflation bug. XLM's had an inflation bug. These things happen all the time. Why? Because when you want to make the code better, oops, you accidentally fuck something up that affects consensus, and then people can mint free coins. Hex doesn't have this problem because the code is locked. Ethereum also doesn't have this problem. It's never happened to Ethereum. And Ethereum has a bug bounty program. So you can get paid to find bugs in Ethereum. Can you get paid to find bugs in Bitcoin? No, just by stealing the money. So wouldn't it be smart for Bitcoin to have a bug bounty program? Yes. Wouldn't it be smart for Bitcoin to try and introduce modularity to its software to isolate the wallet consensus from the network? Yeah, it would be great. Then they could be more like Hex and more like the Hex Ethereum combo, but they're not doing that. Instead, the developers in Bitcoin are going off and making their own side projects. So when you see Adam Back tweeting, what's he tweeting about? Liquid. Does Liquid have anything to do with Bitcoin? No. It's its own fucking software code base run by its own set of developers that takes away Bitcoin's actual use case, which is settlement. Don't settle on Bitcoin, settle on our sidechain, right? So, and then they have cloud mining play too. And who's left Blockstream? Peter Woolay left Blockstream, went to Chaincode Labs. Some other badass dude just left Blockstream and went somewhere else. And then everyone's been calling out Blockstream forever and just no one listens, right? Samson Mel sells toxic maximalist hats while investing in ERC20 tokens and being paid in ERC20 tokens with a toxic maximalist hat on for sale. What? Are you kidding me? What is this bullshit, right? Be honest, tell the truth. I do it. It's okay. You can tell the truth about shit, right? So Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Ethereum's never had an inflation bug. It does higher transactions per second. It has scalability now. You can do 2000 TPS with on-chain security guarantees through any layer 2 rollup that you want. You can use Matter Labs Optimistic. You can use ZKSnarks zero knowledge rollups. You can use, OMG's plasma shit. There's all these things that work now, that scale now. So Ethereum has never had an inflation bug, can't roll back the chain. That's their major problem way back when. It was smaller, so you could roll the chain back. If they could roll back the chain back, they would do it now for Gavin Wood, who wrote Solidity and who wrote most of the Ethereum code. He's got $150 million locked up because he had a multi-sig failure that he wrote. And if anyone in the world was going to get bailed out, he is the most inside human being possible in the world. If anyone could get bailed out, they would bail him out. They're not bailing him out. So there's $150 million proof. It's probably more now because the price has gone up.
That they're not going to be going through a chain.
They're not rolling back. So we've got proof that they're not rolling back. We've got scaling now. We've got bounty programs. We've got more decentralized mining. If you want to mine Ethereum, you can do it with your video card. If you want to mine Bitcoin, fuck yourself. You can't. You need to go get $1,000 and send it to some weird country you don't live in and hope they send you the mining machine on time and hasn't been tested too long and milked for its profitability. And then you finally get it, and then you can contribute to the Bitcoin network. Bitcoin has 42% of all of its economic energy and 2,000 addresses. It's centralized as fuck. Something like 60 or 70% of the mining is in China. Could you think of a more censorship-friendly country than China that would be more likely to cause network problems, since they're like the global grand champion of filtering internet? The Great Firewall of China filtered more internet than anything else ever in history. So that is the absolute not place where you want your hash power, right? So what does Ethereum have? Ethereum has already got tested a proof of work change if the miners get shitty. Miners get too shitty, we're changing to proof of work. Fuck you guys. And they've already like put forks in the code where the community said, all right, miners are going to get paid less. And then they just pay the miners less and the miners take it. Awesome. That's a better setup. That's a better ecosystem. So you're getting higher throughput with less pollution, with a more decentralized mining ecosystem, with more backup plans that are already tested to take over if the miners get shitty, with scaling already done, with bug bounties already done, and more developers and working on smarter stuff. All the ZK rollup guys, all the scaling guys are all working in Ethereum ecosystem. I mean, some of them are doing their other Ethereum killer plays. Or
one
whatever.
Thing I wanted to ask you about, Richard, sorry on that pitch. I think you gave a pretty good pitch overall on it and even tackled on a few things. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so one thing I wanted to ask you here in this case, and actually maybe you can build on this in the sense of scalability, is I remember a while back, you were pretty, especially back in the day when you were really big on Bitcoin, big on proof of work. Yeah. Obviously with the 2.0, I'm in the boat that it's going to take a long time to get there.
Sure.
Everyone I've talked to, yeah. So basically, I'm just curious, do you think in this case, going to proof of stake is a better step for Ethereum in this case, or do you just think it's
depends.
Maybe, yeah.
I think it will, I think it'll be very late because all software is very late, and it always has been and always will be. So I think it'll be very late. I do think we already have proof that federated models with reduced security, reduced censorship resistance, but higher throughput are totally functional. For instance, EOS. EOS is just 21 guys deciding whether they want to let you keep your money or not, and that's it. And usually they do. And so, look, that system hasn't failed yet. We have other proof of stake and distributed proof of stake systems that have not been hacked, which just show that this particular vector of attack, it's not a thing. And by the way, proof of work, it's actually just proof of stake in electric bills and hardware bills.
Yeah.
So it's just an alternate proof of stake. The difference is that you don't have the nothing at stake attack where you say all chains are valid, but really only one of them was, but since you said yes to everything, you got paid anyway. But you cure that through slashing, which is people put up a security bond, and if they catch you saying shit that ain't right, they prove it, then they take your money. So, exactly. So it's there's also problems with the economics. So Hex solved staking. They're still trying to figure staking out from an incentive perspective. So they're trying to decide how much you should get paid, right? And there's risk. If you have any type of hardware downtime, you're losing money. If you have a cosmic ray do a bit shift on your CPU, you're losing money. And if you see the test nets, people have lost money on the test nets, and they just end up getting fucked. So if you want to Vitalik has a video called "So You Want to Be a Casper Validator," and it explains all the ways, and it's really actually hard, and it's a job. So the difference, like staking Hex, you just lock it and then you don't have to do anything. But staking ETH, you have to run a server farm and keep the uptime and hope that nothing goes wrong, or you will lose money. And keeping computers up, it's a full-time job. It's not easy at all. And because people hand that work off to other people and introduce a centralization. So it's like, I don't care if it works or not. Like, I'm happy with the way Ethereum works now. Yes, we have these spikes for fees, but those spikes for fees cause more buy pressure and cause the price to go up. So when did Bitcoin make all-time highs? When fees were at all-time highs. And when did Ethereum make all-time highs? When fees were at all-time highs. So all-time high fees is the price you pay for a bull run. So for me, it's like an okay trade. If we can get USDT onto more L2 stuff, because it's not decentralized anyway. They print by accident $1 billion and then take it back away. They've done that. They're like, oops, we printed an extra $1 billion. Our bad. We'll just delete those. That's how secure that system is. Since it's fake secure anyway, you can put that on L2, no problem. And then that would take away about 25% of the transactions off of Ethereum, like this. And those transactions don't actually add value to the Ethereum network, because they used to run on Omni, and Omni only did $200 a day volume, didn't do shit for the Omni price, so they ain't doing shit for the Ethereum price. So I would love to see the Tether transactions offloaded onto an L2, and that would leave more space for everybody else that really needs the decentralization. And then if we could get Uniswap, which I think is like 60% of all of the gas usage now, Uniswap V2, if we could get that onto an L2 of some sort, then that would help.
It's literally going to be all we need, man, in order to buy time until some kind of layer 2 solution. That's the thing that I was kind of talking to people about, is it's like, I think so many people are hyped up about, they're excited about ETH 2.0, but the point I constantly bring up is that any investor that I talk to, any Ether developer, anyone in the community that actually has a know of what's going on and is realistic and not overtly optimistic is saying that this is going to be, even Vitalik, he said it on the interview with Peter McCormack, this is going to be something over the next few years that we're looking to do. Like, so this is not coming in 2021, maybe the early stages.
You don't need it. The shit works great now.
But that's the thing.
You know?
Exactly. It's layer 2. Layer 2 is the interest point here. And the problem is it was really, to be honest, Richard, what I looked for over these last few years is, I know it's going to be very difficult to solve that kind of blockchain dilemma where you have the 3 corners in this case that you have to worry about. But in this case, it's a matter of who gets to layer 2 scaling quicker and who does it properly. And optimism,
if everyone uses optimism, everyone will do it at the same time, because it's already pre-rolled for you. You can just be like, copy paste the code onto the L2 server, you know?
It's so easy to onboard everything that people have already worked on. It saves a ton of time. And I think it's going to be basically, as you mentioned, due to the openness of it, in the sense that it'll be well tested and rigorous by the time it goes on to mainnet, and most of the big applications will be using it. I mean, dude, it's going to basically bring way down to single digits consistently, which is going to be really exciting. Yeah. Now maybe there'll be some spams or something on the network. We saw that once, I think, back here in 2020, but it was like, outside of that, I mean, it'll be great. I mean, fees will be down to nothing, and it'll be back to where Ethereum used to be, but also all of the functionality that people are used to with lightning fast swaps, where you don't have to go through a centralized exchange. Whereas you mentioned, in this case, you have access to any token you want in this case. And I think it's a really
can't get cross chain so easy, but everything on the ERC20 network, sure,
yeah. And again, in that case, I think we've seen whether, again, as you talked about, Richard, I think about the risk of it in this case with wrap Bitcoin. I think it's just a signal.
It's better than leaving it on fucking Quadriga CX
exchange. Yeah, and that's the whole thing, is that I think people are already pretty comfortable with trusting people to hold their assets. So I think that, again, wrap Bitcoin, it's kind of a necessary evil in the short term to get that liquidity towards somewhere where it's earning kind of yield rather.
And I tell you something else. The system of having a swap instead of a normal exchange is that when you use a swap, you're forced to take custody again instantly. And that's a big deal, because the float is what gets attacked. If you send some money to Quadriga CX and then you place some limit orders and then you wait, you're at risk while you're waiting. And then if your limit orders get hit, and then you remember to log in, and then you withdraw your money, there's a lot of and thens. But on a swap system, your counterparty risk, which is nothing, you don't have any counterparty risk, but you do have like this much smart contract risk, it's over with quickly, and you can iterate. You can just do smaller trades, one after the other, and then if it fucks up, it only fucks up the last one, and you're just golden. Like, you're in and out so much quicker that your attack surface is so much smaller. It will save millions of dollars of money for people, millions of dollars. And now that the thickest order book in the world for Ethereum USDC is on Uniswap, you're getting a better order execution. You're getting less slippage, period.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing I wanted to build, just to build on it, Richard. Yeah, I think people don't understand the full scale benefits with Uniswap. So this is something I've talked about a lot on my channel. So first off, as you've already hit on, Richard, like obviously you have self-custody in this case by default. There is no way where Uniswap is holding your funds outside of being a liquidity provider in this case. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, though, if you're just making swaps, it's completely non-custodial. And outside of that as well, I mean, that's the face value benefit, but there's also a ton of different benefits. So take, for example, I use Coinbase Pro as an example, like a well-respected used exchange here in the United States. Coinbase Pro charges 0.5% for fees right now. Uniswap by default charges a liquidity provider fee of 0.3%, lower than a professional trading platform in the US that most people rely on. Along with that as well, notice how many times when you're trying to make those trades, whether you're trading spot or whether you're trading derivatives or on a margin, it just happens to be that every time there's a major price move, oh, we got server maintenance. Oh, we got to shut down. We got to fix something real quick.
Coinbase can't live through a 5% move. A 5% move knocks Coinbase over every fucking time.
Yeah, and again, I not naming names in this case. It's like it's pretty much a lot of exchanges. I mean, this has happened across the board. And again, this is another net benefit that people don't talk about with DEXs, or more specifically Uniswap. Uniswap may have high gas fees, right? In this case, until we get to later.
They're actually extremely low gas fees if you compare them to anything else.
No, exactly. Compared to other DEXs, that's very true against Kyber, against Banker, any DEX out there, 0x. It is the most efficient way to do swaps, hands down. But even like, for example,
L1 was a little bit more efficient, but you couldn't do arbitrary ERC to ERC20 pairs. Everything had to talk to ETH. Precisely. If you're just trading for ETH and you just care about gas, you can get almost half the gas price on Uniswap V1. But if you're trading like non-ETH base pair, then it's better on V2. You'll get less slippage. It's a better deal.
Exactly. Yes. So people make the argument about fees in that case and stuff. And yeah, that might be true in regards to maybe if you have high network demand. But the biggest thing above all is making sure, and I realized this, running Digifox and just constantly taking feedback from people. People don't care about paying anywhere from 1% to 3% fees on things. They care most of all about getting execution. And when you're on those volatile moments where your Bitcoin or Ether on a centralized exchange is not accessible because they have 500 people who are trying to run an entire system that's now somehow not working. And then on something like Uniswap, you have a team of 6 to 7 people who have a smart contract on an immutable network that's constantly churning and running. I mean, there's a massive benefit to that. Constant uptime.
And Hex is at 100% uptime.
Yeah. So that's one thing, again.
It's done a fair amount of volume, too.
No, I agree with you, Richard. I think above all, it's the cool thing is that this is kind of building a new standard where everything's going to be up. It's always going to be accessible. Anyone can tap into it. And that's honestly the vision that I love to see. It's what crypto is all about.
Agree.
And it's going to set a whole new dynamic for how finance works, I think, in the long run.
Agree 100%. I would love to see the CEXs, CEX, centralized exchanges, just basically disappear, except for the regulatory arbitrage of being able to on-ramp people with fiat. I would love to see that.
One thing, well, and to that point, Richard, we do that with Digifox. So like, again, even though, for example, in some areas there are still restrictions, in this case due to some specific states or countries, you basically have to go through the standard KYC through Digifox if you want to on-ramp through one of our providers. We tap into a variety of different providers, from bank deposits to debit cards, and you can also make traditional crypto deposits.
You're not doing the standard Uniswap wire.
MoonPay, so
MoonPay,
so basically
wire with a W, or rather WYRE, and then there's like 3 or 4 that like everybody uses. Indicoin for foreign cards, Simplex for local USA cards.
Yeah, so we don't use Simplex. Simplex is way too far out there. At the moment, we do use MoonPay, and we use a new interface for Wire, which improves the experience a lot more. We're actually getting rid of those, and hopefully by January, we're expecting to have a whole new on-ramp network that's going to be better than any smart wallet out there interface to DeFi. So we're very excited about it. It's one thing we've been working pretty extensively on. But using providers that have 0 fees for bank deposits, or at least dramatically reduce it, and also for debit card fees getting cut in half as well.
I got to tell you, this is a sticking point. So people ask me, hey, Richard, how do I buy Hex? I'm like, buy ETH and then turn it into Hex, because it's just more available everywhere. And then they're like, all right, well, how do I buy ETH? And then it's like, shit. Well, you could either set up a Bitstamp account or try the Transact widget if you're in the USA, or if you're doing Euro or Swiss or GBP wires, Or you could use Indocoin if you're using cards outside the USA. Or you could try Changelly, which then you could try Ramp and Apple Pay and Wire. That's a long, shitty, like 8 option answer that sucks. I mean, so like ideally, I'd love to have a dev build a widget that's just like, where do you live? Okay.
Yeah.
Where's your money coming from? Okay.
Yeah.
These are your options, and here's the best deal.
Yeah, and you'll be able to build that, Richard, I think, most definitely and stuff. Again, you can pull from those different providers you mentioned, but we do the same thing. We utilize the area code of someone's phone. We're going to be probably working on a better system. We're going to be pulling from a few different points in that case that we can work with. But again, also respecting data privacy.
And it's hard because half those providers, their states just drop out. So like if you use Wire with a WYRE, they don't handle like, there's like 10 states they just can't do. You know?
Actually, there's a variety of states. We have team along some of the East Coast and stuff, and sadly some of us have to use either another on-ramp service or just do debit card deposits. So in that case, there's a lot of other things we route people to. As you mentioned, sometimes you have to rely on the exchange, but I'm telling you, man, the next year or two, when those on-ramp systems get a little bit better, I think it's going to be massive.
Maybe PayPal solves this. maybe fucking can you wire PayPal money? I think you can. Maybe PayPal solves this shit. I've even heard, so like apparently when you send your money to these exchanges, they just won't give you your crypto for 5 days. Like apparently Coinbase just will not give you your crypto unless it's USDC. Correct. If it's USDC, it depends. Apparently.
Yeah. So for USDC, it depends. So Coinbase, from my knowledge, has about a 5-day limitation. Pretty much on like you can basically receive your USDC instantly into your Coinbase account, but they only allow you to trade it with inside assets to the platform. From my knowledge, don't quote me on that. I think the whole thing though is you cannot withdraw because there's the credit risk of basically making a bank transfer, canceling it, or like, something going wrong. Yeah.
In the good old days, you could. God damn it, this 5-day hold shit's relatively new. I mean, I haven't had to buy crypto in a while, so I'm not really like apparently if you use the Cash app, you can get Bitcoin actually delivered in your hand faster, and then you could like wrap it in bridge.renvm or whatever, and then put it into ETH, or use Changelly or whatever, right? So like I think if you actually want to take delivery, like one of the fastest ways is the Cash app, apparently.
And I didn't know you could actually move your Bitcoin out of Cash app. That's something that's actually kind of new to me.
I think so. I mean, that's what I've heard. I mean, look, I haven't done it, but this is what my chat tells me, and they're usually on point.
Interesting. Yeah, and I know that, above all, the debit cards, to my knowledge, were always like the quick. If you wanted to get into a token of some sort, if you were looking to do swaps, or for example, in your case, HEX, in that case, the best would be for debit cards for sure. You can get pretty much near instant settlement for that. In a lot of areas, there's some areas like, for example, we had some users in like South Africa who it was taking like a full 24 hours in that case, right. But it has to do with people don't understand how complex the debit card and banking network, the back end is to make all of this work. It's a total mess. And it's the same problem with centralized exchanges as we talked about, Richard.
Yep. Hey, at least Visa doesn't fucking exit scam you. Like if you've got like that's the nice part. Like if you have deposits on OKEx right now, you can't get your money out. Period. And OKEx is huge. Fucking huge. Like when you go in like the Bitcoin rich list and you look at the sizes of cold wallets, I think OKEx has the largest cold wallet in the world. So the fact that no one can withdraw, kind of a fucking problem,
Yeah, I mean OKEx, services a variety of markets, but that exchange and BitThumb really tap into Korea and a lot of regions where, it's commonplace where you have like usually older folks in this case who probably aren't as in tune with crypto, holding like a decent size position, and they talk about it in the cafe. They show it to one another. This is what I'm holding today. And I've talked to some of the Korean YouTubers who are a bit on the kind of speculation side of things. Right. And man, dude, like they're even blown away by it. It's a cultural thing there.
We've been on a Korean exchange for a while, and I just yesterday got my first like Korean language question in main chat. So we had like a t.me/hex core. Like we had a Korean chat that people were playing with in a while. It seems dead to me now. But then I was like having to Google Translate answers to this dude, Yeah. Because we got Chinese users, but we don't really have many. I don't think we have any Korean users. This would be like I guess we do, but I don't know them, So I can't like tag them. Like, hey, I know this guy speaks Korean or whatever.
Yeah.
They do FOMO hard as fuck over there. The Koreans, FOMO. hard.
Well, it's very. I mean, it's common in a lot of areas of the world where like speculation is definitely ingrained a lot into the culture. It was the reason in China for the 2015 Shanghai composite bubble that was basically built off retail volume. And
Right.
this is something I always kind of emphasize with what we're seeing now in equities. A lot of people kind of scuff that retail investors aren't playing a role in it because their liquidity size is so small. But the thing is that they do something that institutions don't, and they market buy. So
Right.
they're constantly marking by and clearing
Right.
through any asks.
Yeah.
And this causes a secondary effect where institutions follow suit. They follow what are the retail investors buying?
Right.
And now, as we saw, Warren Buffett was selling the airline stocks when everyone was buying them.
Yeah.
And retail investors bought Tesla. And now the funds are like, oh, we got to get a piece of Tesla at a 200, 300, $400 billion market cap.
You're supposed to get in before the retail, not after. Like they're doing it backwards.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because retail gets wrecked. It just takes a little while, right? Like, okay, helicopter money, everything's going up, fine. But at some point, that was a funny thing. Like you see interviews with like Naval Ravikant or Warren Buffett, and like everyone's scaling into cash. And then you're like, yeah, but the market's a new all-time high, so you guys feel dumb now, huh? And they're like, yeah, I guess we do feel dumb, but like it. Sometimes the market does shit that is unreasonable. So with everyone out of work, all the real estate empty, now we're in like second wave zone. You can't travel, whole industries are shut down, but everything's making new all-time highs. You're like, all right, something's funny about this game. This is not like the 1% owns everything to such a hard degree that it doesn't matter if everyone else is out of work, because those people don't matter. The only people that actually matter are the 1%. And they're giving those guys helicopter money. And what are they doing with their money? Buying up future valued assets. So like that Joe America is out of job doesn't actually affect the market. You're like, oh, well, who knew? Interesting. I mean, I knew the 1% mattered, but I didn't know they mattered that much, right?
Yeah. No, it's upsetting, man. The dynamic that's going on with asset markets and monetary policy it's been really fascinating to see. Just kind of phase two since 2008 in this case, where we've just continued on the same track of let's keep printing money, keep injecting it into financial assets, and somehow this is going to like work out in the long term.
It'll trickle down. Everyone's out of work. Every normal person, right? Rich people are doing great. Billionaires are tacking on extra billions. Hey, I can't lie. Hex is doing pretty good. It's up 115x before the call started. It's not bad. I love being in an industry where we measure our performance by the number of multiples it's done. In a normal business, you're like, we've done 0.005x this year. We're very happy.
Yeah, we're very happy for the strategic 5% growth when we expected 3%. It's like, it's wild, man. And it's so interesting, I think, above all, like to see how fast paced things are moving in this space. I mean, like I said, Richard, I mean, just thinking back like a year ago, man, like it was just, it wasn't per se just an idea, but you hadn't launched it yet. You were just getting ready for it.
Hilarious.
So, I mean,
and so much changed. It was Bitcoin hex. Now that Bitcoin word, we don't need it. Get out of here.
Yeah.
We don't want it. And people could yell and complain. And then, dude, $3 billion of Bitcoin holders minted their hex in the contract. That means people that have private keys to spend $3 billion. It's more than $3 billion now. It's like 306,000 Bitcoin. So it's probably like almost $4 billion now, I guess. They could just decide to swap some of that for hex, because they've already used it and they've already seen gains on it. So, and we know they have the private keys because they signed from the private keys. That's amazing. Like 3 billion. So sure, it could have been a lot more. Like we only got like 3% of the possible claims, I think, but it's still $3 billion fucking dollars. That's a lot of money. Like,
yeah, man.
Like people that have minted their own hex have control of $3 billion of Bitcoin. That's awesome. Like what more validation do you want,
Yeah. No, I think above all, Richard and stuff, like I said, I'm very interested to see how things go over the long run. What I appreciated above all with Hex, like when you first when we talked about it originally, and also I'd been kind of following it through about the couple of months before you actually took it live on mainnet. The thing for me that really stood out is that, look, for example, it's definitely out there. It's definitely different from a lot of the other cryptocurrencies. But the reason why it is I think, not only did you do things by the books, but the one thing as well that I do appreciate above all is that you're not kind of BSing. Like you're just kind of honest about what Hex's
tell you why we built it.
Yeah.
Everyone else, Satoshi put a halvening of the inflation every 4 years. It's not in the white paper. There is no mentioning of the halvening in the white paper whatsoever. Why did Satoshi put that in? Because he wanted it to pump. Now, What do the Ethereum guys want? They want Ethereum to pump. So what are they doing? They're trying to build coin burning with the IP 1559. So instead of miners being paid something that they then give to the electricity company, it'll have a large component that just burns. So it rises the ETH price.
It's actually purely not just like Bitcoin where you have a declining inflation rate to a finite cap, but with E1159 in this case, or Ethereum Improvement Proposal 15599. Yeah. In this case, you're giving the opportunity where Ethereum can actually become truly deflationary. So it's kind of a misconception some people have about Bitcoin is they call it deflationary.
It's
when
not.
In reality, it's
just
finite.
Convergently less inflationary.
Yeah, exactly.
So we already have coin burning. And they're trying to figure out staking so they can get coins to lock up to drive the price up. And we're like, yeah, we already have that. So like Hex already has coin burning and lockups, and Ethereum's trying to catch up, but people don't realize that. And the other thing is, a lot of what Hex does is actually just what Bitcoin does, but people don't realize it. So Bitcoin inflates to reward miners, and miners literally just sell the coins on people's heads to pay for electric bills and hardware. They don't buy coins, they sell them. Hex inflates to pay stakers to hold the price up. And we don't have negative externalities. We don't have to pay miners. They get a couple pennies or a dollar. They don't get billions of dollars an hour like in Bitcoin. And they're both fixed reward pools. So in Bitcoin, if you're 10% of the hash rate, you get 10% of all the block rewards. In Hex, if you're 10% of the shares, you get 10% of all the rewards. That's it. We have two systems that inflate. They both inflate at low single-digit percents. One inflates for miners to dump the price. One inflates for stakers to hold the price up. But they both have fixed pools, and they're both divided up the same way. So shares in Hex are equal to hash rate, and total hash rate is equal to total shares. They're the same fucking thing. And then difficulty, in Bitcoin, you keep having a higher and higher difficulty because the hash rate gets higher and higher. The Hex equivalent for difficulty is the share price, and our share price only goes up. Now, actually, difficulty can go down sometimes, although it's rare. In bear markets, it does. And in Hex, the share price just goes up and up and up, which is how we account for compounding. So if you had put in money and it had compounded, okay, well now we have to pay you the interest, which means we've got to take data and write it to your database entry. And then we have to do that for every stake you have and for all the other 10,000s of stakers, right? I think there's like 30,000 stakers. So instead of writing all those databases all the time, instead we just do what Bitcoin does, and we account for our accounting by moving the share price up. So now it's harder for new guys to dilute you, and you will never be able to get a better share rate than you already have. The share price only goes up, and it's mathematically the same because we're just maintaining a ratio. That's all shares do, is they say, how much do you have versus somebody else? So instead of inflating these guys all the time, we just deflate the new guys, and that keeps the ratios the same. And you don't have to write to the database for 1 million guys. You just have to write it once for the new share price. And our share price is like Bitcoin difficulty. Our shares are like Bitcoin hash rate. Our total shares is like Bitcoin total hash. There's so many similarities that once you look at the system from like a helicopter view, you're like, yeah, it's not actually that much different. So Hex has a hybrid proof of stake for inflation, proof of work for transactions, and Bitcoin has proof of work for inflation and transactions. But other than that, the two systems are very similar, right? Like once you look at it from like that overview. And the only other thing that we did was interesting. Bitcoin used to freemium onboard people by double clicking an EXE. They give them free coins. And so we had a freemium onboarding where we just allowed you to claim if you had Bitcoin. So we both had freemium onboarding. We had an affiliate program. Bitcoin didn't. Our referral program disappears in 26 days, 25 days. Our ability to turn Ethereum directly into Hex in the contract disappears in 25 days. The ability to free claim as a Bitcoin holder disappears in 25 days. It's all gone. And the only thing that's left is a maximum of 3.69 inflation, maximum, for people that stake. If you're 10% of the stake shares, you're 10% of the payouts. That's it. Like it's actually a pretty simple system that just has less pollution, pretty much, because we're piggybacking on ETH.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there, Richard, is that a lot of the features that you guys worked on in this case to kind of help initiate Hex as an asset in that case, as you mentioned, I picture it kind of like in this case, like the different components of it slowly kind of tethering away with the big launch that you guys have coming up in the next few weeks.
In 26 days, there's like $1 billion payout. It's literally worth $1 billion now. It's going to be very interesting. It's like,
it'll be interesting to see what that does to pricing, because I'll be honest, I think that when you do kind of dilute the supply in that case, there's probably going to be some.
Well, here's the thing: it's only paid to people that are locked; they can't sell. So there's a big inflation on that day. So you're going from a 460 billion supply to like a 183 billion more, but the majority of that is going to people that are locked up for years. The average stake length in HEX is 4.3 years. Do you know how long people have to stake to get an average of 4? There has to be a shitload of 10-year stakes. There's a shitload of 10-year stakes to get a 4.3 average.
Yeah, so just to understand it, Richard, to make sure I get a full transparent picture on it and understanding what you built. Yeah. So in this case, you have the lockup in this case. Is it like basically custodial? No, it's not custodial, wrong term. Is it basically locked up like permanently in this case? Or is there any way, for example, I know people, for example, can face a penalty in a lot of cases. Can people withdraw and face a penalty?
It depends on how long you locked for. Okay. If you locked for 10 years, it gives you 3 times the shares. And if you got those 3 times shares and you locked for 10 years, you will nuke your account to 0 if you try an emergency end stake. And some people do it. Some people click that emergency end stake button and they literally nuke their account to 0. Don't know why they do it. Shouldn't do that, guys. You know, if you like.
So you have. So in that case, it's a permanent lockup. There's no like.
If it's long, withdrawal. But if it's short, then you can get out with a reasonable haircut. So if you only staked for like a year, you can get out and you might even still be up in profit percentage wise, right? So like if you staked for a year and you did like, if you do half your stake, you can get out with your principal, but you're going to lose all your interest, no matter how long you did it for. So right now, like if you had a 10-year stake and you only served 1 year, which you couldn't even have done because the system's not even a year old, it's going to be years before you'll ever be able to actually end stake and receive anything out of it. So for the longer stakers, they're hard locked, cannot possibly get out no matter what. For the people that stake shorter periods of time, they can get out and pay an exit fee to do so, an emergency end stake penalty. And that's actually, remember how I was telling you about Bitcoin equivalents? That's our fee system. So in Bitcoin, people say, oh, well, what's the utility? Okay, well, people pay fees to use it. So obviously there must be some utility or they wouldn't pay the fees. All right. Well, HEX has that too, except our fees are the emergency end stake penalties. So right now there's been about 900 million HEX of emergency end stake penalties, which is worth maybe $8 million at today's price, it's worth maybe $8 or $9 million over this year. Well, who has received that $9 million of value? The stakers that were honest and staked as long as they said they would, and the origin address, which gets half. Those are the 2 people that benefit from that. And what is the origin address doing with all of its coins? Well, to the best of anyone's knowledge, not a single one of those coins has ever been sold on market, right? So what you end up having is a whale that is absorbing the penalties and absorbing the coins and then not staking them. And then that increases the market cap, because if you stake a coin and it burns, it's not in the market cap anymore, and increases the payouts to the other stakers. So right now, if you're doing this competitive yield farming stuff, you really want to be in the 20s as your percentage payout to compete and outcompete other systems, you know? So like if you were to go on like Maker and see how much you could get for like staking your ETH, it's 0.0 something percent. It's like nothing. Like you cannot make any money locking your ETH in Maker. But you could turn that into HEX and put it into HEX and get an APY and pull it out when you want just by doing a stake ladder. So you could just have one stake ending every week or one stake ending every day, however you want to do it. And then that gives you constant income. So it's like the whales in the HEX system basically can decide how much they want to stake or not, which will affect what the APR of the payouts are in order to be competitive. Now I have to imagine before the big payday in 25 days that a lot more people would stake, because it's a fucking $1 billion payout, and who doesn't want a piece of that, right? So once you understand how HEX works, it's so similar to Bitcoin that you're just like, oh, there's not that much differences. Like we pay stakers instead of miners. We have a 3.69 maximum inflation rate, which is lower than Bitcoin ever had before it went to 20K. Now Bitcoin's at like a 1.87, but it's totally different. If in Bitcoin, that inflation gets sold on the market to pay for electricity. In HEX, if you're an average length, average size staker, there is no inflation to you because you're the one getting paid the inflation. So it's actually 0% inflation for you if you're an average length, average size staker. The only people that are actually diluted by inflation in the HEX system are the people that don't stake. And that's how the virtual lending works. And in a system like, let's say Compound, someone takes out a loan and they pay an APY for that, and that APY becomes someone else's yield. In HEX, you're not taking out a loan, but you're being diluted if you're not staked. And so the value of your ownership of the system is being diluted by other people's rewards that they're getting for staking and that you're not getting. And when they stake, they burn their coins, which rises the market value. And so what you have is the people that stake are lending virtually value through supply and demand curve. They're reducing the supply, which increases the value of the person that can sell, the person that's not staked. And so that's a value transfer, like an indirect value transfer. And then that person can harvest that value. But while he's holding those coins and not like selling them, he's paying for that privilege because he's being diluted. He's getting less of a percentage of the system. So it's actually virtual lending without people being liquidated. You can't get liquidated. If you go onto a platform and you put up a deposit and you don't maintain 115% collateralization, your ass will get liquidated, right? So like as soon as you hit 114, a bot is going to come along and liquidate you, and you're going to lose.
Yeah. Just to kind of build that, Richard, from my understanding that I've always seen from Hex, I understand you make the analogy of like the like time deposits or CDs in this case.
There's some things in common.
Yeah, I think in that case, the system that you've kind of replaced is traditionally, whereas, for example, a bank, you would lock up your money because there's a time fixed on the deposit. In this case, they're able to go out and maybe, for example, lend it out for a long period of time, make, in this case, interest on that money, and therefore they're going to pay at a higher interest rate than a savings account where someone can move in and out. In this case, what you guys have basically built is a system where, at the same time, in this case, you do have the inflows of value from people coming into the system, being hopefully at the end of it kind of the rewarding system for those who might be, again, getting out of the system later on. Is that correct? Well, it's because you're not really putting the money to it, again, unlike a traditional lending system where that money is going into credit markets and debt. In this case, it's more just a circulating system.
This is a super common misconception. When people deposit money into banks, it goes on the bank's the non-asset side, the liability side. So when you deposit money in a bank, now they have a liability. They owe you that money. They don't actually lend your money out. Your money just sits there. What they do is they use the fact that you deposited as an excuse to get free money from the government. And the government just says, you can get as much free money from us as you want. However, you need to have this ratio of deposits sitting in your bank. And so when you deposit money at the bank, your money doesn't actually get lent out. The government's money gets lent out. Your money just gets used as an excuse to get the free money from the government. And that's an important difference because people go, oh, well, where does the money come from? It just comes from inflating it out of thin air. That's where the dollars come from. And in cryptocurrency systems, it also comes from inflating it out of thin air. Bitcoin is up 1.3 million X right now, and it went hyperinflationary from 0 coins to 18 million coins in 10 years. Well, how do you get from 0 to 18 million in 10 years? You inflate like fuck. And in the early days, Bitcoin's inflation was thousands of percent annualized in the early days. Hex gets rid of that phase, which took a long time for Bitcoin to get over with. We get to get it over with in the first year and jump right to Bitcoin's year 10 state where it did 20,000, where its inflation rate was about 3.89. And we target a max of 3.69. And it's actually far lower than that because it's delayed. So these people, they only get it at the end of their stake, and the average stake is 4.3 years long. So you're not even going to see 3.69 inflation for a good while until those stakes come out. So you're going to see
above
less.
all, Richard, above all, I get your point completely on that. I'm not there to per se, Chris. I was just saying more than anything, I guess the major difference from like with Hex as a project compared to maybe to a traditional CD in this case is that the capital in this system that you've built, and as I'm just trying to understand the system, it's not exiting outside of the system, it's staying inside Hex, and it's really about, again, being able to build a sustaining model in this case for people to be able to put away money, get some form of yield in this case, so long as Hex is, again, getting some general traffic over time. Yeah. The
biggest difference between this and a normal CD is that people that buy normal CDs are risk averse. And if you buy Hex, you are going to have volatility. And
that's the dynamic of Hex's price in this case is the increased volatility.
Yeah. And that's the idea. Do you want to, Hex is up 11,500% right now from January 5th. Do you think Hex could be up 11,500% if it did the shit normal banks do? No, we have to do things better and different to get you a 116x return instead of a 5% return. And another thing is dips are actually how people make money in crypto, but people don't realize that. In crypto, when you have a closed system, when people lose money, where did it go? Somebody else made that money. So when people come along and buy Bitcoin at 20,000 and then sell it at 3,000, somebody made that money. So this truth engine of getting people to declare how long they're going to stake for and then penalizing them if they don't, and showing all the trades online. You can see when people bought, when they sold, who made money, who lost money. You can see who's taking out loans, right? Because it's all on Ethereum. There's no like anonymity in there, unless you force it to happen with like Tornado.cash. So all of that transparency and all of that openness, it gives people the opportunity to fuck up and wreck themselves and make somebody else rich. So if you want to buy a top and sell a bottom, you have that opportunity and you're going to make someone else rich. If you want to emergency end stake and not do what you said you would and stay staked as long as you would, you have the opportunity to nuke your account. In crypto, if you send your coins directly to the contract address, they're gone. Some guy just sent $1 million to the AAVA contract address. It's gone.
Yeah,
it's over.
They did that. It was with Sushi as well. I think someone from Gate Exchange or something said 400,000. Yeah, 400,000 tether, and I was like,
I think they did it again. I think they sent another 200,000 or something. I think they did it twice, or maybe the 400 was split across two. So in crypto, you have the opportunity to nuke yourself, and someone else is going to benefit from that. And we declare these things openly. Hex is the only website in the world that talks about crypto going to zero on the homepage. This shit goes to zero, it flash crashes to zero, and that ride from a penny to $20,000, the price dropped 75, 85% 3 times. You got to be ready for that. We're the most, if you go to bitcoin.org, they don't talk about the price. If you go to ethereum.org, they don't talk about the volatility. They don't talk about the rollback. We talk about this shit on the homepage. It's the most honest website in crypto. And then people, they try and demonize us because they don't talk about price because they're better than us. When really the only thing anyone cares about is the price. And they hide it. And then you're like, hey guys, there is a better way. You could just tell the fucking truth. You designed it to pump. That's why you put the halvening in there. You're still trying to make it pump with coin burning and lockups. Business design is causing things to accrue value. That's what a business is. A business accrues value for its shareholders. If you're not okay with accruing value, then you're not okay with business, then you're not okay with capitalism, then you suck. It's really that easy. Designing things to appreciate value is beautiful. You think Ferrari designs its cars to fall apart and go to shit? No, they design them to be beautiful and hold their value, and they put limited fucking numbers on them. And they purposely limit things to make them more value. Building things of value is a beautiful endeavor, and I don't think people should feel bad about doing it. But apparently, some people do. You talk about price on your website, you're evil, apparently.
Yeah, well, Richard, above all, man, I'm interested to see, like I said, how things go and stuff. And again, I above all, like, I think what you've built is something definitely unique in the space. And if it's something that's, different or out there from more of the traditional copycats and DeFi and stuff, I'm interested to see how it goes, man. And above all, again, it's definitely, I think in that case so far it's done well. And I just, above all, again, just want to say, man, best of luck with everything.
Tell people how they can find your app and stuff, man.
Yeah. In that case, if people are looking for, again, tapping into some of the other sources in DeFi right now, you can always find Digifox on iOS or Android. It's on the Google Play or Apple Store. We're adding a few more features. We got a December release coming out that'll hopefully clean up the user experience even more than what we've built. And outside of that as well, add some new on-ramps going into January. We're going to be looking at doing layer 2 in Q1 of 2021.
Are you sure? Got a lot of other you just started up. There's no way you have enough volume to need the L2. I mean, you really want to get the bragging rights early, or? So
it's not really so much for transactions. It's it's more, we're really hoping, and it's kind of a matter of some of our protocols or some of the tools that we plug into, such as Compound and Uniswap, actually going to Optimism. Right. But outside of this, we do want to also hopefully have layer 2 payments in this case, which would make it seamless for Digifox users to send money between one another, which I think is going to be really good and important in scaling out Digifox in the long term. You have to build a better payment system than traditional systems, and then have all the features and functionality you'd expect at a traditional bank or kind of a new age bank in this case.
Dude, it's really good talking to you, man. Like, when we hung out in Singapore, it was great. I can't wait till COVID fucks off so we could hang out again. This COVID shit, it's like, it makes, I would love to be on stages right now saying cool shit, but, there's none of that
calling
going
out Craig Wright.
Fuck that guy. I look at crypto, man. People should follow you on your YouTube, youtube.com/DataDash, right?
If you just search up DataDash on YouTube, you'll find me there. And then outside of this, I'm on Twitter at Nicholas_Merten. There's a lot of DataDash Twitter fake accounts, but it's just Nicholas_Merten. And but same goes to you, Richard, and stuff. I know a lot of people who might be watching my stream. You can always check out Richard on YouTube as well. Just search up Richard Hart. And I know that Richard's got all the links there for Hex and everything he's been working on. So
I love it. You can't misspell it. You cannot misspell hex.com. You can't. If you go to HECKS, then we don't even want your money. Keep it. You need it more than us.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I think the one thing, Rich, I will say above all that I think again, one thing that I was thinking about Hex in regards to just kind of like as a project and stuff. And I know you've talked about how you guys chose the branding and everything. I'm probably one of like the probably smaller community people who I absolutely love the color shading that you have.
Thanks,
because
man.
I'm like I love like the retro wave kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
I will
it's
say
great.
in that case, I think in the long term with scaling, if I can give one feedback point on Hex, in that case, I think Hex above all. The best thing you can do that I know, for example, you've spoken on Ampleforth before. And again, I like these types of things. I like, again, I like seeing what people can do to build different types of monetary systems that are automated. Above all, I think that's one thing that I'd like to see maybe change over time with Hex. But again, I understand as well the philosophy of how to scale it, especially during the referral period.
The interesting thing is, what could use less TPS than something that is locked on average for 4.3 years? It's the minimal possible TPS usage. And we have extreme GASM optimization where we do bitwise shifts and shrink all the data types to the minimum possible. And it's like actually very, very, very cheap. I think some of the functions are less than Uniswap functions, depending what which ones you're calling.
No, not so much. Yeah, I think that.
You're talking about just scaling is getting in new users.
Right. Yeah, well, in the sense of branding in this case, like not the name. I think the name Hex is fine and stuff. No, I mean in the sense of like overall design. I'm just a design bug in that case, but if you ever need some input, man, I'm happy to help.
Thank
and
you.
above all, man,
I appreciate that, man. Maybe we could work together on those Fiat on-ramps because it is a sticking point, and whoever solves it, man, please go to town. Like, there are people that want to buy Hex and they haven't because everyone else sucks at their job. So it's like, hey, I want to buy Hex. All right, go buy ETH. They can't, right? And you're like, bro, it's good talking to you, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see each other soon. Anytime you want to stream, maybe we'll do one after the big payday, maybe.
Awesome, man. Sounds good, Richard. It's nice getting to chat. And thank you guys as well for tuning in. Appreciate it.